Hello. Today I'm discussing section 3.2, Applications, the Legend. And I hope you had a chance to read through this because I'm not starting directly in the beginning of chapter 3, section 2. Instead, I'm starting on page 5 with example 3a. And I'm assuming that you have read the text or will be soon reading the text and that you've read up the material before this. But what I'm focusing on today in this lesson is what begins at example 3. And as you can see, I've got already prepared example 3a, 3b, and 3c all on page 3.2-5. What we're looking at here, when we read this, it says the following: two of the angles in a triangle are 30 degrees and 50 degrees. Find the measure of the third angle. This is typically what is referred to as a word problem or a story problem. I prefer to simply call it an application, but it doesn't really matter. They all mean the same thing. We're going to apply algebra to these. Now, the truth is, each of these problems can probably be figured out using arithmetic. Thinking about it, thinking about the situation, working with what you know, etc., etc. But they're intentionally on the simpler side because when you get to an answer, I want you to easily and readily recognize that answer is the correct answer, that if you just put the numbers in quickly, you'll see that, oh, if one angle is 30 and the other is 50, then the third angle has to be 100 degrees, and it makes sense, etc., etc. Now, why it's 100 degrees, it's part of the reading. But that's not what I'm focusing on right now. Instead, what I'm focusing on is how to begin to approach such a problem as this, or Monica had to drive 150 miles to get to the Human Resources Training Convention, etc., etc. How do we solve these kinds of questions? Is it something that we should know the answer to immediately? And the answer is no. That I don't ever expect you, and hopefully no one else will ever expect you to know the answer immediately. Instead, what I'm going to introduce to you in section 3.2 and then later in section 3.3 is an approach to solving almost any word problem that you come across. And the whole purpose of this, in having it in two different sections even, is to help you realize that there are strategies to solving word problems. And that when you get to the end of a word problem, and you're not expected to know the answer immediately. Instead, what I'm planning to teach you is how to strategize, how to look for pieces of the problem and break it down into different pieces. And so we can just work with one little piece at a time and then bring it all together. And we'll be bringing it all together in section 3.3. But in 3.2, we're going to work on simply one aspect of solving word problems. And that is what I call the legend. The legend is something that is used on a map. On a map, you might see some symbols like this. You might see railroad tracks. And that's a symbol. It's a part of the legend. It has reference to something. It means something. And it means that when you see that on the map, that means it's a railroad. And things of that nature. Well, all of these things like this are called icons in the legend. And I'm not going to worry about that so much. I just wanted you to get the sense of a legend tells you about things in the problem, or in this case the problem, or on a map, whatever it would be. We're going to start with applications that involve just one unknown. Just one unknown. There's only one thing that we don't know yet. There's only one value that we don't know yet. And when we have a situation like that, most commonly It's found in the very last sentence. Find the measure of the third angle. Or, what was her average rate of speed while driving? And really, in this case, it's the average rate of speed that's the unknown. The measure of the third angle in the first problem, that's the unknown value. Look at the last example here, example 3. 3C says, oh, actually, it's all one sentence, so I guess it's the first sentence and the last sentence here. It says, find the width of the rectangle. Okay? And what we're most interested in is the width. The width. Find the width. And to help us find what we're looking for here, to help us identify something, and of course it makes it algebraic this way. As I said, we set up what's called the legend. And in the first example, we could say let x, I'm going to make that a little bit skinnier, I'm sorry. That's a little bit too thick to write. Let x equal the measure of the third angle. So this is the legend of our first example. Yeah, I agree. Sometimes it's a little bit tedious writing it out, but it's an important part of solving word problems. And if you've been good at solving word problems in the past, well, this will just, hopefully you've done something like this, or it'll enhance what you've done in the past. But if you haven't done well with word problems in the past, then this legend hopefully will become very helpful. And it's even more helpful when you get into other classes later on in math or physics or something like that, if you should get to those classes. Setting up a legend, identifying what the variable is going to be, that's an important part. And so that's what this section is all about. Let x equal the measure of the third angle. Notice that I used the same words that were in the equation, or in the last sentence, I mean, the measure of the third angle. I use those very same words here. Sometimes we can abbreviate, and this is the way to be technically accurate. If you wrote simply let x equal the third angle, I don't think anyone's going to be too concerned about it, because you're still getting the message across, as we're talking about, the third angle of that triangle. In the next one, let x equal. Notice that we always are going to start the legend with let x equal. And that's just a nice mathematical way to say that we get a chance to assign the variable, and we're going to let x equal what? Well, this time it's going to be average rate of speed. I've underlined it in red here, average rate of speed. And it's actually going to be Monica's average rate of speed. So in our legend, we could even write that. Let x equal Monica's average rate of speed. That could probably be abbreviated her average rate, or just let x equal the average rate. And since it only refers to Monica, that might be obvious that we don't need to get too crazy with writing the whole sentence, but I am at this point in time. And in the next example here, the width of the rectangle. The width of the rectangle, or just the width. So I'm going to write that legend out. Let x equal the width. How about without? X equals the width. So when there's one unknown, and of course we need to identify when there's one unknown, but when there's one unknown, it's very simple, the legend. Usually you look for the last sentence and it will identify it. Or sometimes, there's only one sentence, as we saw in this one, and that's what we use. Well, the width, find, the key word here. Sometimes it'll have a question mark at the end, sometimes it'll be find something. It won't be a question, but it's that one last sentence that helps us identify what it is that we need to find.